Good day and welcome to Contemporary Black Voices, where we take on the most important issues confronting Black America. I am Sharon Michael Chadwell, and I will be your host today. Our topic today is America's homegrown terrorists. As started with an 2025 needed bang. We've seen two men killing several people by driving vehicles into crowded areas in Las Vegas and one in New Orleans. This brings an old saying to mind. We have met the enemy and it is us. This phrase seems to be fitting for what America has seen lately. These killings seem to be a trending evil in America, and we've learned the following about both men. Both of them served in the military, were based at Fort Liberty, North Carolina. Both served in Afghanistan and rented cars from Turo, a rental car company that utilizes personal vehicles. Both men seem to have been radicalized after reestablishing themselves into civilian life. We want to have the discussion of, is this America's future? And if so, how did we get here? And what can be done to change our fate? So our panelists are businessman, and community activist Chris Dawkins, along with best-selling author, foreign and African policy expert Caleb Alexander. We love to hear from you. So put your comments in the comments area. And then also post your comments on YouTube at Black Video News and hit the like button. And subscribe by hitting the bell so that you are notified whenever Contemporary Black Voices has a new show. And immediately following the show, we will have a live show called Hot Topic, where you can post questions and have them answered in real time. So let's get right into it. You want me to start?
Sure.
You want this, first of all, we are 4 days into 2025. And all this happened on January 1st, it looks like. So 2025 is not starting out too good. One of the things that I have noticed is how mainstream, main media has been really handling the descriptions of these two guys. Personally, I feel they're terrorists. But one newspaper, the New York Post, really gave attention to Livelsberger, the guy who set off the Tesla Cybertruck, making him look like he's a hero. They focused in on that he was in the special forces. They never mentioned anything else, and I found some other stuff. And then in New Orleans, there was a black man, Shamsuddin Jabbar. And they're making him out as a terrorist from the get-go. They didn't focus on him being a hero, like they made him, the other guy look like a hero, but they focused on him on where he lived, talking about he lived in squander. He had cats and dogs. What does that sound like? You know, cats and dogs up in Ohio. So they're already making this one guy, and they both should be negative, but this one guy is not getting the terrorist classification, and the black man is.
Well, I think both of them are terrorists.
Yep.
For me, there's no question about that. They both are terrorists. And one thing that the CIA said, I think it was the CIA, that there's already hundreds of Al-Qaeda people here, and they are ready to strike. So the next big thing is probably going to be like these events. After hindsight, I'm glad that they canceled the Sugar Bowl to one day, because maybe the attack that he was doing one day was to take focus off of what could have happened at the Sugar Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think that America really needs to somewhat re-examine themselves to find out what exactly is going on and why are we in this position. and why are these people after us so much? And they're after us so much. We've got two oceans on each side of us, on the East Coast and the West Coast, and we basically have, I think, friends in Mexico and Canada that insulates America. So you really can't infiltrate us in those ways. So now Al Qaeda has infiltrated by putting residents into America, and they have become those sleeper cells. And eventually, they will be the ones who will carry out acts from within. So we have these terrorists that could be either homegrown, radicalized, or it could be just people who've moved here that have a gripe with America.
I agree. Now, one of the things that I found out just this morning, that Livisberger wrote a letter. Someone called this his manifesto. And in that letter he wrote, this was not a terrorist attack. It was a wake-up call. Americans only pay attention to spectacles and violence. What better way to get my point across than a stunt with fireworks and explosives? And then he also said, why did I personally do it now? I needed to cleanse my mind of the brothers I've lost and relieve myself of the burden of the lives I took. In another letter recovered by the police, he wrote, wake up to all Americans. We are being led by weak and feckless leadership who only serve to enrich themselves.
Wow. That's a very telling. Again, this is a military man who's basically, the way I read that, he's saying the things that we fought for, the people that we killed for America's freedom and democracy, and the brothers that I lost, we are now finding that maybe what we put our lives on the line for is not really what's happening in America. And I wonder if this is a Trump supporter.
He was.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think even though what happened was bad, I think this was a serious effort around in finding out event. And it just came a realization for him as to what really is going on.
So I'm wondering if this is the reason why we're finding these military people who are doing these things. Because both of these guys were in the military. Mm-hmm. Both of them went to Afghanistan. And for whatever reason and wherever it happened, they became radicalized. They came back to America. And when they came back to America, my thought is they were okay with the way everything was going on. But something happened that triggered these guys to say, like Michael Jackson's song, they don't really care about us.
Well, I think when you talk about a 19-year conflict, right? When you look at Afghanistan, almost a 20-year conflict. And so a lot of those guys, they came back broken. You know what I mean? And so mentally broken. It's hard to be in that environment. You're away from your family, and there's a lot of stress and pressure that goes with that, away from your children. And when you have your buddies that are there with you, and you're engaged in a high stress environment constantly, 24 hours a day, and you lose folks, and not just one or two, even though one or two is bad and it's a tragedy, when you lose multiple good friends and you know that they have wives and they have children, and you examine the lives that are cut short, it can break you. And then having to pick up a weapon and engage and take the lives of other folks. And if you examine the origins of that conflict, Saddam didn't have weapons of mass destruction. And so we went into Iraq under false pretense and spent, well over a decade at that time. And so you've killed people over a false pretense. And then when you went into Afghanistan, you stayed in there even after the original mission which was to dismantle Al Qaeda and eventually get bin Laden, but you stayed afterwards. And so a lot of people were saying, well, why did my friends die? We had already killed bin Laden.
Hold on to that point, and we're going to be right back. And let's pick this up on the other side.
Absolutely.